Welcome to Mo to Write, the official Writing at Moravian podcast. Hi, thanks for tuning in to Mo to Write. My name's Lola Offenback, your host, and today I'm here with AJ Minnich and Logan Palau. Today we're going to talk a little bit about having a writing process, the importance of a writing process, and our personal experiences with writing and some tips and tricks. Mm-hmm. I always say, to start, I feel like I don't have a writing process. I feel like I just write. But, I don't know. That is a process within and of itself. Mm-hmm. And, I do definitely use different techniques. So, what do you guys, how do you guys feel like you write?
I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand how they write, so they kind of just chalk it up to, I don't have a process.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. So, I guarantee you, if you sat down to write, and were cognizant of what you're doing, you would know you would be able to know and explain your process. Because I'll be honest, most of the time I'm just sit down and start writing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's inherently wrong. I think a lot of people have this idea that they have to have I think a lot of people have an idea that they need to have a definite idea right from the beginning of what they want to do. They need an outline. They need to do this and that and that. And that's kind of ingrained in us because of schooling, especially in high school, where we're kind of told you need an outline, an annotated bibliography, and this and that and all this stuff. And I personally don't think that's a good idea to inherently have. It works for some people, obviously, but I often find that the best writing process is one that you're not thinking about, for the sole reason that it has unintended when you're writing off the cuff and you're just thinking while writing, it gives you the opportunity to actually have unintended things happen in your writing. Mm-hmm. So when I'm writing my honors project, for example, the most productive periods of time and when I'm not operating under my outline. It's when I'm just kind of thinking through all these ideas and the processes, and I'm like, oh crap, I just made a really cool connection. Let me write about that real quick. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't fully know that, and they think they have to use a definite process, when I think honestly sometimes just operating under vibes is the best process.
Okay, yeah, so I definitely agree with you. I think thinking about my high school experience, I was always one of the better writers and everything, which partly inspired me to be an English major because I knew that's where my strengths lied. But we had a very rigid, you make your outline and you have to submit your outline for a grade. And then we would use what's called noodle tools if it was for a research paper. And so it was
that.
Each flashcard. And so you would do your research through our database, Reeves database. We had our own version in my high school. And we would find a source. But looking back now in high school, we would copy and paste a section of the text that we thought would be good for our article, paste it in there, and then basically rewrite that and summarize it. And then they encourage us to directly copy and paste that into our papers, which I think is such a bizarre process because at that point I feel I'm just regurgitating what someone else is saying, but in my own words. And there is a strength to that, summarizing people's work and things like that. It definitely helped me learning how to write, but I feel a lot of my arguments weren't my own, and they weren't me critically analyzing material, which I definitely did, but I know for a lot of my classmates, they didn't go in and analyze as much as I would within my Noodle Tools page. But at that point, we would copy and paste basically a lot of the stuff that we had and that we found, and then just fill in filler paragraphs or filler sentences, transitional topics and things, and then write our intro, write our conclusion. So that is a writing process. And something that I do a lot too is mind mapping. So I'll take a piece of paper and I'll write the question or the central idea that I'm going to talk about in the middle, and I'll take a highlighter and put it in a bubble. And I'll just, start making little branches and little bubbles and, connecting all the lines to, build an argument. So that is, kind of what I do for brainstorming. But even thinking about, for the newspaper, I'm always collecting my materials and then I write. I don't collect, write normally. Unless I have to do, some follow-ups and things. And then when I say I don't have a writing process, I feel like I say that simply because I don't reread my papers. And that is my fatal flaw in writing, is, like, I hate rereading my writing. It never, like, I feel like I have such imposter syndrome. It never feels good enough for me.
Same.
Yeah,
and so
I
I
agree.
hate rereading it. But, like, most of the time, like, I do book in the writing center a lot. I book with AJ a lot specifically because he's worked with my writing a lot. And, like, I know our flow together works really well. And it gets me thinking more critically. But, like, I prefer to have a peer review my work rather than me review my own work. And we do that for the newspaper. Like, we edit each other's works and things. And that gets me to go back and think more critically. But I think I always say I don't have a writing process simply because I don't reread my own work. And that is something I want to do more of and, like, get better at, especially before I graduate, like, going into my senior year. I feel like that's my one skill that I really need to build within my writing, is being able to reread my own work. So...
Yeah, no, that's good.
yeah.
I feel like for myself, also just like when people say they don't have a writing process, I feel like it's just they don't have a strict writing process that they like abide by.
Yeah.
Like what AJ said, if someone were to observe you writing 3 different times, I'm sure they could identify some patterns in like how you do things. But yeah, some people it just is better for them to like free write, or like how you do it, AJ, to like just sit down and bang it out. Personally, for me, with anything that I do that's like long form, I almost always have 2 documents, one for like my actual writing and then one for like my notes and everything that like I'm thinking of, because my brain has a lot going on in it. So I like throw down what I know that I want to include on the page, and then I like check it off once I've included it.
That's smart.
Thank you. But then also for like the going back and reading, I also don't love like going back on my readings. So I installed Speechify, which is great. I used to use Google Translate before like I found Speechify, but there's like a character limit. So basically I literally just like click this button and I have somebody read my paper out to me, because like sometimes I'll read it out loud to myself, but it's just easier for me sometimes to hear somebody else read it, and it's made my editing so much quicker, and it's made like getting through my papers easier, because I'm like, okay, I know that this reads well. But yeah, I think honestly creating outlines for larger form things has helped me. Like for my senior project, I need an outline, but like most of the times for like articles and stuff, I don't use an outline. For this grant one I just did, because it was a lot of information, and you saw I showed you my spider graph.
For context,
Yes.
she is our assistant editor for the Comedian newspaper, and she just wrote an article about the It's On Us grant that Moravian University was just granted.
Yeah.
They like applied for the grant. Check it out at comedian.org.
Thanks for the plug.
Shameless plug here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone who thinks like, oh, I don't have a writing process, oh, I need to get a writing process, is don't. Because I think a lot of people think of writing as a one-stop shop kind of deal, where like there's no wiggle room in how you should be doing it, when in reality I fundamentally disagree with that. The way I approach my honors project is different than how I approach my essays in my poli-sci classes. It's different than I approach my comedian articles. So I think when you're writing, you need to approach it from the perspective of what exactly am I writing, and then how do I approach this specific piece of writing. In my honors project, I always start with the intros, because I need I need to establish that framework before I move on to the rest. In my poli-sci classes, I end with the intro, because I think when I'm writing the entire essay, the overarching idea forms itself, and then I can write the intro. So it really fundamentally depends on what you're writing, and then tuning your process depending on what you're writing. Yeah. I write a news piece, and I'm going to have a bunch of notes before I even start writing the actual prose. Whereas with my entertainment articles, I just start writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like most of the time I have a very similar process. Like I said, I do the mind mapping for like my academic papers a lot. A lot of the time if I'm writing something about like a novel, I do like my little mind mapping, or if I have like a prompt, things like that. And then, like, I also do, like, my background research. Like, usually the background research, I think, comes first for me. And then I do, like, my mind mapping. But I don't mind map for, like, the comedian. I just start writing at that point. And, like, if I'm writing an entertainment piece, like, I've watched the show, and you laughed at me, but I was going to write a review about Wicked, the film, part 1. And we went to see it the first time together, and I asked to go see it again. so I could like think more about it. And I was going to bring a notebook and take notes, and he laughed at me. But that's part of my writing process.
How dare you?
Like, I ended up taking notes after we left.
Like a little film critic.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was. You can't be on your phone. Like, I usually type in my notes app. But, like, you can't do that in the theater. I was going to bring a notebook.
Were you going to be able to see, though?
I don't know.
We figure that out when we get there.
I ended up not doing it because he
shamed me
into not doing it. But I ended up writing notes afterwards. So I feel like that is in itself a writing process. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to recognize, like you're saying, the patterns within our writing. And it's also important to take stock of what we want to improve on. Like I said, I want to get better at reading my own writing back, but like take baby steps. Like I started like having my mom read a lot of my papers, and then like I started going to the writing center and getting like more eyes on it, and that gets me to go back and like read certain sections. So like I feel like having your mom read your paper so beneficial, because she doesn't know what the hell you're studying. Like, let's be real, at least my mom doesn't. Like, unless you're in the same field. But like my mom doesn't know what's going on. She's never read the books that I'm writing about. Like she sometimes I even have her read my newspaper articles, like if it's a big topic and I don't know if I'm actually making sense. Mm-hmm. So I feel like getting eyes on your paper is super beneficial, peer reviewing, but also, like I said, I want to improve on self-reviewing as well. I think there's something really valuable in that, because you know your piece the best. You wrote the piece, and you know your thoughts on the subject the best. So making sure that you feel like your argument is coherent is also very important. And that can come before or after peer reviewing, honestly. Like, you can see how people are perceiving your work and then go back and reread it. And that's what I do a lot, is, like, when we do our newspaper edits, like, that's when I go back, and that's when I self-review it more. So I feel like a lot of people think that self-review should come before peer review, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think you can, like, change up your process from what's, like, traditionally advertised or whatnot. I think it's important to take stock of that and be critical in analyzing how you're writing, and then analyzing what pitfalls you see through your writing process.
Yeah, that's smart. I agree.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I don't think so.
No? All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of Mo to Write. Stay tuned for our next one. Take care. Bye.
Bye.